So I just wanted to make another video. It's Christmas Eve, and it seems like there's a lot of people, hopefully the majority of people around. I mean, at least in this country, first world country, in the city, that are getting ready for Christmas tomorrow and doing all those lovely preparations, or maybe doing a kind of Christmas Eve celebration like some people do. But there's some people struggling. This is the first Christmas that I've experienced where I haven't really had many people to turn to spend time with on and around Christmas. And Christmas largely was one of my favorite times of year. And I had always heard about how all of that magic and that connection and that warm feeling that for a lot of people that appreciate Christmas, they enjoy that warm feeling. But I'd always heard about an inversion where it was one of the worst times of year for some people. Some people just wanted to get through it. Maybe it reminded people that struggled with Christmas of those that weren't in their life or that they had lost, and I'm in that camp at this point. And I think maybe for some people they might have folks to spend time with around Christmas, but it was very high stress. Maybe there was a lot on their shoulders during Christmas, so they weren't the happiest about all that pressure and all that activity, which was largely up to them. I think my dad found it a little bit stressful, at least leading up to Christmas, but he provided me and the people around us with many, many years of warmth and belonging and abundance and love, and I'm very thankful for that. So this is my first experience of the inversion, and I heard about that. I understood it intellectually. I could imagine it in my heart for many years, but this is the first time that I've been face to face with it. And luckily I do have a handful of people in my life that I can reach out to, that I can talk to, but it leads me to, the topic that is one of the topics that I've explicitly stated about this channel is the difficult place that masculinity holds in our culture. And it does seem like there is a crisis of masculinity. Now, some people talk about this, but many people come from different points of view. I think maybe from some people's point of view, men need to be less masculine and assertive or aggressive or sexual or whatever, and need to be maybe a little more feminine or something like that. Let go of that identity. And then I think maybe for other people that think there's a crisis of masculinity, it's the opposite, right? It's that men are getting too soft, too feminized, that they need to go to the gym more, learn to make money more, learn to have more value. And I feel very strongly, everybody is going to construct their own value system, but I feel very strongly that, as a man, you should be worth more than how much you make, how much you have in the bank, what your job is, and your status in society. A lot of people from different parts of the political spectrum will overtly and covertly judge men's worth under those criteria. Some of them will punish men for being men, but still want them to fulfill that very traditional expectation of being a provider, of having the money, of making the actions, of doing the protection, the physical protection. But it's a difficult place for a lot of guys to fit into and figure out what it means for them and who they can connect with and navigate the litany of ways that men get expectations put on them that are catch-22s. And there's many catch-22s that men are struggling with at this point. And just in general, there's part of the crisis of masculinity is loneliness. I'm struggling with that. I'm facing that. I'm working that out right now. And I have less people in my life than I've ever had that I can spend time with, that I can turn to. On one hand. On the other hand, there's a lot of men out there that are in a much worse position. I don't think that it's okay to play that game of who's got it worse. We're all human beings. We all deserve some degree of compassion and kindness. And we all have worth. It's a difficult place to fit into. The last few days have been a big struggle for me, and I've sort of been up and down. But, I had a difficult experience today with an ex-girlfriend, the girlfriend that I mentioned in a previous video, who came over many years ago for Christmas. I invited her over. She didn't really have another place to go. This is when my mom was still alive, and spent Christmas with her. And she needed connection and moved in and to get intimate, and it kind of messed up another relationship that I was in with a woman at that point. But, I bear my own portion of responsibility for that. But we had that connection over the years, and I reached out to her recently. We reconnected, and she invited me over for dinner tonight. And there was some complication in our connection, but we spoke about dinner tonight. And on the phone today, she asked me how I was doing, which is a common question that a lot of people don't answer like literally and honestly. It's kind of like hello. That's what a lot of people mean when they say how are you doing. But I've always very consciously felt that people should say how they're doing when they're asked, especially if it's someone that you have some kind of history with, that you have some sort of connection with. I spent time with this ex-girlfriend very recently, and we had a lot of time talking and different kind of intimate connection. And she had just gotten out of a relationship with someone that really messed her up. So she was in the grips of processing all that trauma. And me and the way that I talked, or just being a man, I don't know, I triggered some of that over and over and over. So there was some conflict that came up. Today, she called me. We were talking about the preparations, or the plan, I guess, or we're going to talk about the plan for dinner today at her place. She was going to invite a few other friends over. And like I said, she asked me how I was doing, and I was really struggling. I have a lot of issues sleeping with the soft palate stuff and the jaw stuff. I snore really bad, and I wake up in pain with all of this inflamed. And sometimes if I don't sleep right, there's a lot of brain fog. I have trouble breathing. It's tough, and a lot of other stuff that's gone on recently. So when she asked how I was doing, I said, I'm not doing good. I answered honestly, especially with her. I thought that I could be honest. And then she was a bit taken aback and asked, oh, why? And I told her. I said, Christmas is really hard. Both of my parents died in the last few years. I'm struggling, as I do during the winters, with the chronic pain and all the various physical limitations that brings up, as well as, this person in the basement that's not paid hardly any rent for the whole year and is now acting very standoffish and entitled. And this is the thing. It's like men can't be honest. Yeah, a lot of men get baited. A lot of men are really having a hard time, struggling with loneliness, anxiety, depression, low points in their life, trying to figure it out. And men need to be treated with a little more respect, a little more compassion. This ex got very, very triggered, and we got into this big, long discussion that turned into an argument just because I was honest with her when she asked what was wrong. Supposedly I was supposed to take extra care of her, I guess, because she was a woman and her trauma and her grief and everything like that was more important than what I was going through. But this is the kind of thing that a lot of men get put in, these difficult spots where there's nothing to do except for kind of bow down and say, yes sir, yes ma'am, your problems are more important than mine. I really was surprised by this ex-girlfriend's reaction, because there was no space for both of us to talk about how difficult the stuff we were going through was. She used the term trauma dump and wanted me to warn her that I was going to tell her how I was actually feeling. I understand it intellectually. I understand what she's talking about. It's part of a kind of therapy subculture where everybody's a victim, and there's this kind of competition about like who's got it worse and who gets to have their trauma and their struggle be the focus of attention. And there's this ridiculous hierarchy that's sort of built into that. And it's just like there's people out there that are having a hard time, you know, and if you're a man, you have a certain set of struggles. And I think men should be able to speak honestly about their struggles and have people listen and have people show some compassion. If you ask a man how they're doing and they tell you that they're not doing well, and you say why you're not doing well, then let a man honestly tell you what that is. They're not trying to take something away from you or take something out on you. Hopefully you're one of the people that can listen, because there's a lot of men out there that get conditioned to not talk about what they're going through and just keep internalizing that more and more and more, and just that those scabs, the scar tissue builds up. And that's why there's such this is one of the things around Christmas, suicide rates are so high, you know, for people that are really struggling. And suicide rates for men are through the roof. That's one of the really important and challenging components of this crisis of masculinity that our culture is going through right now. So, you know, it's a time where people get together. It's a time where a lot of people, thankfully, I'm glad, a lot of people are feeling joy and connection and warmth, but there are some people that aren't. And, you know, if you know a man out there that's going through some type of loss, some type of grief, that's trying to work with their trauma, understand that sometimes they're going to raise their voice. If they get physical with you, if they get nasty and call you a bunch of names, like, that's not okay. But understand, men are going to get intense sometimes. And if you ask a man about what's going on, let them speak their piece. Listen to that. Maybe, hopefully, everyone involved can make a little space for what they're going through. And if you're not going through what the other person is going through, maybe you can just help them and make a little space for them and be the exception. Be the exception that actually is a patient and loving, or at least compassionate ear for a man that's struggling, whether it's Christmas Eve or Christmas or any time of year, because there is a crisis going on right now, and there's a lot of men that need help, and sometimes that help starts with the individual, with those small interactions. There's no need to treat a man badly just because he seems weird, or you don't understand what he's doing, or he talks about his trauma. Let's all help each other. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling a lot better than I was earlier today, in spite of this very difficult experience that I had with this ex-girlfriend. I did some qigong, I did some meditation, and I'm feeling thankful. There's a man who has a YouTube channel who, I guess, talks about the spiritual renaissance that we're going through right now. And one of his recent videos talked about how God will cook you. God will cook you. And sometimes that's to teach you a lesson. Well, usually to teach you some sort of lesson about where you are. And sometimes that means you got to learn that it's not for you, whoever it is, whatever the situation is, and maybe move on. And maybe sometimes you can't, and there's more lesson to learn. I've had to move on from a number of connections, and I'm struggling with that right now at a time like this, where connection is so focused on, like Christmas. But there are ways to get through it, and I just wanted to make a video because I was feeling thankful and content in spite of the general grief that I'm going through right now. You know, after my walk, before coming home, I had a smile on my face. I was wishing people Merry Christmas. So, it can get better. Hold it together. And may you find someone that has the strength and compassion to hear what you're going through and make a little space for that.